Dad canceled my 18th birthday party as golden child brother wanted a weekend getaway. So a couple of weeks ago, I was all set for my 18th birthday. I'd been looking forward to it for months. I mean, 18 is a big deal, right? I had this whole plan with my friends. Hang out, maybe go to the movies, grab some dinner, nothing too crazy. It was supposed to be simple but fun. Plus, my dad, Will, had agreed to pay for everything, which was nice because, well, I don't have much money of my own yet. But of course, my little brother Matt had to ruin everything. Matt's 15, and to be real, he's my dad's favorite. It's not even a secret at this point. He's been Dad's golden boy ever since our mom, Sharon, passed away from cancer a couple of years ago. Ever since then, Matt can basically do whatever he wants, and Dad just goes along with it. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's just expected to deal with it. So, the day before my birthday, everything's fine. I'm excited. My friends are texting me. We're talking about what we're gonna do. And then Matt comes into the room throwing one of his classic tantrums. Turns out he didn't make the school football team. Honestly, it's not a shocker. Matt's not great at sports. He likes to think he is, but he's kind of lazy and has zero team spirit. Still, he takes it like it's the end of the world. He's all worked up, saying he needs to get away for the weekend to clear his head. I'm sitting there like, wait, what? I mean, it's my birthday. My birthday. I've been planning this for months and now he wants to just disappear? I'm thinking there's no way Dad's gonna let this happen, right? Wrong. Dad, being Dad, listens to Matt whine for maybe 5 minutes before saying, sure, we can go up to the cabin. The cabin? God, I hate that place. It's this little thing my dad's friend owns, way out in the woods, and every time Matt throws one of his fits, they head there to fish and chill. Matt loves fishing, him and Dad both actually, but I don't. I've never been a fan of the woods or anything outdoorsy, to be honest. I get why they go, but why did they have to pick this weekend? Of all weekends, it had to be the one when I turn 18. So I try to speak up. I'm like, wait, what about my birthday? We had plans. I'm thinking maybe Dad just forgot. Maybe he'll realize what's going on and be like, oh yeah, your birthday. We can do both. But nope. Matt starts saying how he really needs this trip and how he's had such a rough week, and Dad just eats it up. And that's when I kind of snap. I tell them both that there's no way I'm staying home by myself on my birthday while they go on some stupid fishing trip. Like, this happens all the time. Ever since Mom died, they've been running off to the cabin, leaving me at home to deal with everything by myself. And usually, I don't mind staying home alone. It's kind of nice, to be honest. But on my birthday? No. Just no. But Matt, being the selfish little brat that he is, says he doesn't want me to come. He straight up tells Dad that if I'm there, it'll ruin his trip because he doesn't want to deal with me. And somehow Dad agrees with him. It's like I'm invisible to him or something. He doesn't even bother to ask me if I want to come. He just takes Matt's side and that's it. End of discussion. At this point, I'm fuming. I tell Dad that if he doesn't let me have my birthday plans, I'll just invite my friends over anyway. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? But Dad gives me this whole speech about how if I do that, he'll cut me off from my college fund. And I'm supposed to start college in a few months, so I can't risk that. It's not like I have any other way to pay for it. So I'm stuck. I have no choice but to cancel my birthday plans, and I end up spending the entire day alone while they drive off to the cabin. No party, no friends, just me and my phone. I mean, my friends texted me happy birthday and all, but it wasn't the same. I spent most of the day feeling sorry for myself, and honestly, I cried myself to sleep that night. I know it sounds dramatic, but it really sucked. I just wanted one day, my day, and Matt couldn't even let me have that. The worst part is, Dad didn't even seem to care. Before they left, he tried to make it better by saying we could celebrate when they got back. He was like, we'll have an even bigger party next weekend. I'll give you more money for it. But the thing is, I didn't want more money or a bigger party. I just wanted to spend my actual birthday with my friends, like a normal person. But of course, that was too much to ask. By the end of the day, I was just tired. Tired of always being the one left behind. Tired of Matt always getting his way. Tired of Dad acting like my feelings didn't matter. And the thing is, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. It's been going on ever since Mom passed. Whenever Matt wants something, he gets it. Whenever I need something, it's like, oh, you'll be fine. You're older. You can handle it. But being older doesn't mean I don't need anything. It doesn't mean I don't want to be treated like I matter. I get that Matt's younger and he's more like Dad. He's into sports and fishing and all that. But that doesn't mean I'm just irrelevant. But that's how it feels sometimes. Like I'm just this extra person in their lives who they can forget about when it's convenient for them. And I know it sounds petty, but I couldn't help thinking about how different things were when Mom was still here. She was the one who kept things balanced. She didn't let Matt get away with everything, and she made sure I was included. But now, without her, it's like everything's changed. And I get it. Dad's probably still grieving in his own way. But it feels like he's using that as an excuse to just focus on Matt and ignore me. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept going over all the times Dad had put Matt first and all the times I'd been pushed aside, and it just made me angry. Not just at Dad and Matt, but at myself too. I kept thinking, why do I let this happen? Why don't I stand up for myself more? But then I remember why. Because whenever I do, Dad threatens to take something away, like my college fund, and I can't afford to lose that. So yeah, that's how I ended up spending my 18th birthday. Alone, angry, and wondering if things will ever change. Spoiler, they probably won't. So, after my depressing birthday and everything, I wake up the next morning still feeling like crap. You know, that kind of feeling where you just don't want to get out of bed because everything feels pointless? Yeah, that. But then, out of nowhere, the doorbell rings. And it's early. Like, way too early for anyone to be visiting, especially since Dad and Matt are gone, and I hadn't invited anyone over. I almost didn't answer it. I was still half asleep, and honestly, I didn't expect it to be anyone important. But the doorbell kept ringing like whoever was out there wasn't about to leave anytime soon. So I drag myself out of bed, throw on some clothes, and shuffle downstairs, thinking it's probably just a delivery guy or something. But when I open the door, I'm completely shocked. It's my grandpa, Walt, sitting there in his wheelchair with his nurse next to him. I literally just stood there for a second, processing it. I hadn't seen Grandpa in a while, and he never just shows up without telling us first, especially not since the accident. For those who don't know, Grandpa's in a wheelchair because he lost both his legs in a car crash a couple of years ago, not long after Mom passed away. It's been tough on him, and we don't get to see him much anymore, since he lives out of state. The last time I saw him was last Christmas, and even then, it wasn't the same. He's been super quiet since Grandma passed, which, honestly, isn't surprising. He lost his wife and daughter within months of each other. It's like life just hit him with everything all at once. Anyway, I'm standing there, totally surprised, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is, "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" Like, it's obvious I'm happy to see him, but I just didn't get it. He's not exactly in the best shape to be traveling, and it's a long trip from where he lives to here, but he just smiled, even though he looked tired, and said, "I couldn't miss my granddaughter's birthday, could I?" And that's when I just lost it. I started crying, like, really crying, right there at the door. I'm not even sure why it hit me so hard. Maybe it was the fact that Grandpa had come all the way here just for me, when Dad and Matt couldn't even be bothered to stay. Or maybe it was because it was the first time in a long time that I actually felt like someone cared about me. Like, really cared. I don't know, it was just overwhelming. Grandpa looked a little worried when I started crying, probably because he didn't expect that reaction, but he wheeled himself inside and told me to sit down. His nurse, who was super nice by the way, helped him get settled, and then she quietly stepped out to give us some space. I sat down on the couch trying to pull myself together, and Grandpa was like, "Tell me what's going on." At first, I didn't want to. I mean, I've always been the type to keep stuff to myself, especially when it comes to family drama. But something about the way Grandpa asked made me feel like I could finally open up. So, I told him everything. About the canceled birthday, about how Dad and Matt treat me, about how things have been since Mom passed. I just laid it all out there. And you know what? Grandpa listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to make excuses for Dad or Matt. He just let me talk. And when I was done, he didn't say anything for a minute. He just kind of sat there, thinking. I could see he was upset, though. He wasn't the type to get angry easily, but I could tell this was really bothering him. Finally, he looked at me and said, "You shouldn't have to put up with that." Simple as that. I don't know why, but hearing those words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. It's like I'd been telling myself for so long that this was just the way things were, that I had to deal with it. But hearing Grandpa say it, it made me realize that no, I didn't have to just accept it. Then Grandpa did something I didn't expect at all. He told me, "Why don't you come live with me for a while?" At first, I didn't know if he was serious. Like, I've always loved Grandpa, but moving in with him, that's a big step. But he was serious. He said that since I was about to start college soon, and my school was closer to his place than here, it would make sense for me to stay with him. Plus, he said he didn't like the idea of me being alone here with Dad and Matt treating me like this. I couldn't believe it. I mean, yeah, I'd thought about leaving before, but I never actually had a real option, you know? And now here was Grandpa giving me the chance to get out. It felt like I could breathe for the first time in a long time. We talked about it for a while, and the more we talked, the more it made sense. I'd have more space to focus on school, I wouldn't have to deal with the constant favoritism, And most importantly, I'd be with someone who actually cared about me. So I agreed. I was going to move in with Grandpa. But here's the kicker. Wait, not supposed to use that word, scratch that. He wasn't leaving until Dad got home. "I've got a few things to say to your father," he told me. And honestly, that made me kind of nervous. I've never seen Grandpa confront anyone before, especially not Dad. But I guess there's a first time for everything. That whole day, we just hung out. Grandpa asked me more about school, what my plans were for college, and stuff like that. It felt so normal, like the kind of conversation I should have been having with Dad but never did. I told him how I was nervous about starting college, but also excited to finally get away from home. He nodded like he totally understood. Then at one point, he looked at me and said, "You're going to be fine, you know that?" I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until he said it. It wasn't the same empty reassurances I sometimes got from friends or teachers. It felt real, like Grandpa knew I could handle whatever was coming. By the time Dad and Matt got back from their trip, I was ready. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't staying here anymore. Grandpa was about to drop a bomb on Dad, and I was going to be free. So Dad and Matt finally came back from their little fishing trip the next morning. I was already awake because, well, I couldn't sleep much after everything that happened the day before. Grandpa was staying over for the night, and even though he was pretty chill, I could tell he was still pissed about everything I told him. He wasn't the type to lose his temper, but man, when he was mad, you could feel it in the air. I heard the car pull up, and immediately, my stomach did that weird thing where it twists up in knots. I didn't know how Dad was going to react when he saw Grandpa sitting in the living room. I mean, they've always had a decent relationship, but this was different. Grandpa wasn't here for a casual visit. He was here to confront Dad, and I knew it wasn't going to be pretty. Matt was the first to walk through the door, all smug like usual, probably thinking nothing had changed. He didn't even notice Grandpa at first. He just tossed his bag on the floor and started heading up the stairs. But then he stopped mid-step when he saw Grandpa sitting there. His face kind of froze for a second, and you could tell he wasn't expecting this at all. "Grandpa? What are you doing here?" Matt asked, his voice dripping with confusion. He probably thought Grandpa had come for a surprise visit, like some happy family reunion. But nope, this wasn't that kind of visit. Before Grandpa could even answer, Dad walked in, carrying a couple of fishing rods and looking tired but happy. I could tell he was in a good mood, probably because he thought they'd just had the perfect little father-son trip while I was home alone, forgotten as usual. But then he saw Grandpa, and it was like a switch flipped. His smile dropped, and suddenly he looked nervous. Like, really nervous. "Dad," he said, setting the fishing rods down. "What's going on? You didn't say you were coming." Grandpa didn't waste any time. He didn't even bother with small talk or pleasantries. He just looked right at Dad and said, "We need to talk, Will." And that was it. Just 4 words, but the tension in the room shot up to about 100. Matt, sensing that things were about to get serious, mumbled something about going to his room and started slinking upstairs. Classic move, avoiding any confrontation that didn't involve him. Dad, on the other hand, looked like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't have. He glanced at me, probably trying to figure out what I'd told Grandpa, but I didn't give him anything. I just sat there quietly, waiting for the storm to hit. "Let's sit down," Grandpa said, his voice calm but firm. He wasn't asking. He was telling. Dad hesitated for a second, but then nodded and sat down across from him. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I just kind of hovered in the background, not really wanting to leave but not sure if I should be there. Grandpa noticed, though, and he turned to me and said, "You should hear this too. Sit down." So I sat. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the tension crackling between them. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and I think he was trying to figure out how bad this conversation was going to get. Grandpa started slow, which surprised me. He didn't immediately jump into an attack, even though I knew he was mad. He began by talking about Mom. He talked about how much he missed her and how losing her was the hardest thing he's ever gone through. I could see Dad getting more and more uncomfortable because, let's be real, he probably didn't want to talk about Mom at all. But then, Grandpa shifted gears. "I'm here because I've been hearing things about how you've been treating your daughter," he said, his voice dropping into that serious tone that makes people sit up straight and pay attention. Dad didn't say anything at first. He just stared at Grandpa, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. After a long pause, he finally managed to stammer out, "What do you mean?" Grandpa didn't hold back after that. He laid everything out. The favoritism toward Matt, the constant neglect, how I'd been left alone on my birthday. All of it. Every word he said felt like a hammer coming down on Dad. And honestly, it was kind of satisfying to see someone finally call him out on all the crap he's pulled over the years. Dad tried to defend himself at first. He started with, "It's not like that, and she's old enough to handle things on her own." But Grandpa wasn't having any of it. Every excuse Dad made, Grandpa shot down. He wasn't yelling or anything, but he didn't need to. His words were cutting enough. Then Grandpa dropped the big one. "You're treating her like she doesn't matter," he said, his voice sharp. "Your daughter just turned 18, and you couldn't even be bothered to stay home for her birthday. You chose to take Matt fishing instead." Dad's face turned red. I could tell he was embarrassed, maybe even ashamed, but he still didn't apologize. Instead, he tried to shift the blame. "Matt's going through a lot right now," he said. "He needed this. It's been tough for him." "Has it ever occurred to you that it's been tough for her too?" Grandpa shot back, pointing at me. "She lost her mother too, Will. But you're acting like she's fine just because she doesn't throw tantrums like Matt." That hit home. I could see it in Dad's eyes. He knew Grandpa was right. But instead of apologizing or admitting he was wrong, Dad just sat there, staring at the floor like a kid who'd been caught doing something bad. And then Grandpa said something that surprised both of us. "I'm taking her with me," he said. "She's going to live with me until she starts college. She doesn't need to stay in a house where she's not treated like family." Dad looked up, shocked. "You can't just take her," he said, his voice shaky. "This is her home." "No, it's not," Grandpa said, his voice cold. "Not anymore." I was sitting there, feeling a mix of emotions, relief, fear, excitement. It was all hitting me at once. I wanted to go with Grandpa. I wanted out of this house, away from the constant favoritism and neglect. But part of me was scared too. What if leaving just made things worse? What if Dad never wanted to see me again after this? But then Grandpa turned to me and said, "You deserve better than this. You're coming with me, and we'll figure the rest out." And that was it. Dad didn't fight anymore. He just sat there, staring at the floor, not saying a word. I think he realized that he had no right to argue. I think deep down, he knew he'd screwed up, but he was too stubborn to admit it. So I packed my things. Grandpa and I left the house that afternoon, and as we drove away, I looked back one last time. I didn't see Dad or Matt waving goodbye. They didn't even come to the door. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally doing something for me. So after that intense confrontation with Dad, I packed up my stuff and Grandpa and I left the house. We didn't talk much on the drive. I think we were both processing what had just gone down. I mean, it wasn't every day that you basically just left your life behind. I kept thinking about how everything happened so fast. One minute I was stuck in a house where I felt invisible, and the next I was driving away with my grandpa to start over. The ride was mostly quiet, except for Grandpa asking me a couple of times if I was okay. I told him I was, but honestly I wasn't sure what to feel. It was weird. On one hand, I felt relief. Like I didn't have to deal with Dad or Matt anymore, at least for a while. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake this feeling of guilt. Like, maybe I just abandoned my family. It's strange how, even when people treat you like crap, you still feel bad when you finally stand up for yourself. Anyway, we got to the hotel that night since Grandpa wanted to rest before we made the full trip back to his place. It wasn't anything fancy, just a basic hotel off the highway. Grandpa had already arranged for my stuff to be sent over, so we didn't have to lug around my bags or anything, which was nice. Once we got settled in the room, Grandpa ordered pizza, and we sat on the bed eating in silence for a while. I kept expecting him to bring up what had happened earlier, maybe ask me how I was feeling about the whole thing, but he didn't. He was just there, calm and quiet, which I guess was his way of letting me take it all in without pushing me. Eventually, after I finished my slice, I started talking. I don't even know why, it just kind of came out. I told him how weird it felt to leave, how part of me felt like I should have stayed or at least tried to fix things with Dad. I mean, he's still my dad, right? Shouldn't I be trying to make it work? Grandpa just listened, nodding along while I rambled. After I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said something that stuck with me. "It's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family." He wasn't angry or anything, just matter of fact. Sometimes the people who are supposed to take care of you are the ones who do the most damage. You don't owe them anything if they can't even give you basic respect. That hit me hard. I hadn't thought about it like that before. I'd always assumed that family was family no matter what, and that you just had to deal with whatever they threw at you. But hearing Grandpa say it like that, it made me realize that I had a choice. I didn't have to stay in a place where I wasn't valued. I didn't have to keep trying to please people who couldn't be bothered to care about me. The next morning, we hit the road again. Grandpa's house was a couple of states away, so it took us most of the day to get there. I was feeling a mix of emotions, excited to be starting fresh, but also kind of anxious about what that really meant. I hadn't spent much time at Grandpa's since the accident, and I didn't know what it'd be like living with him full time. When we finally pulled up to his place, though, all that anxiety started to fade away. His house was cozy, not too big, not too small. Just a nice, homey place tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. The front yard was overgrown, and you could tell it hadn't been kept up with, but the house itself was still in good shape. "Sorry about the mess," Grandpa said, chuckling as we walked up to the door. "I'm not as spry as I used to be, but I manage." Inside, it was like stepping back in time. The walls were lined with old family photos, some of them from when I was a kid, and the furniture was the same stuff I remembered from when I used to visit as a little girl. It smelled like wood polish and old books, and for the first time in a while, I felt safe, like I was in a place where I could just breathe. Grandpa showed me to my room, which used to be the guest room but was now officially mine. It was simple, just a bed, a dresser, and a small desk by the window, but it was perfect. I sat on the bed, taking it all in while Grandpa wheeled himself in and asked if I needed anything. "Nah, I'm good," I said, smiling for what felt like the first time in days. "This is nice." "I'm glad you're here," Grandpa said, and I could tell he really meant it. The next few days were pretty low-key. Grandpa and I settled into a routine pretty fast. He had his nurse come by a couple of times a week to help him with things, but for the most part, he was independent. I helped out where I could, mostly with stuff around the house like cooking and cleaning. It wasn't anything major, but it felt good to be useful, to feel like I was contributing something instead of just being a burden. We didn't talk about Dad or Matt much. It's like we both silently agreed that we didn't need to dwell on it. I was focusing on getting ready for college, and Grandpa was helping me with whatever I needed. Buying supplies, figuring out what I needed to pack, all that stuff. It felt like, for the first time in forever, I wasn't walking on eggshells. But then, about a week after I moved in, Dad texted me. I remember it so clearly because I'd been half expecting him to reach out sooner. The message was simple. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't realize how much he'd hurt me, and that he wanted to make things right. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to believe him, to think that maybe this was a turning point and that we could fix things. But another part of me, the part that had been ignored and brushed aside for years, wasn't so sure. I mean, it's easy to say sorry after the fact, but words don't change what's already been done. I showed the message to Grandpa, hoping he'd have some advice. He read it and then handed the phone back to me without saying much. After a while, he finally spoke up. "It's up to you if you want to forgive him," he said. "But just remember, an apology doesn't erase the past. It's what they do next that matters." And he was right. I didn't respond to Dad right away. I decided to take my time, to think things through before jumping into anything. After all, I was in a good place now, and I didn't want to mess that up by diving back into a situation that had hurt me for so long. College was starting soon, and I had a lot on my plate. I didn't need the extra drama. For now, I was focused on the future, on building a life that wasn't controlled by the people who couldn't see my worth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually in control of my own story. So, it's been a few months since I moved in with Grandpa, and honestly, things have been going pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. At first, I thought living with him would be weird, especially after everything that went down with Dad. But it hasn't been like that at all. It's been peaceful, I guess. I started college not long after I moved in, and it's been a whole new experience. I'd always dreamed about going to college, but I never really thought about what it'd feel like to actually be there, living away from home, figuring things out on my own. And now, here I am, doing it. The funny thing is, once I got to college, everything about home, Dad, Matt, the house, all the crap I dealt with, just sort of faded into the background. It's like I finally had the space to just be, to think about myself for a change, instead of constantly worrying about what Dad or Matt needed, or what I wasn't getting from them. I know it sounds cheesy, but it was like this weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I've made some friends too, which, to be real, I wasn't expecting to happen so fast. I'm not exactly a social butterfly, and I figured it'd take me a while to meet people. But the second week, I met this girl, Kayla, who's in a couple of my classes. She's super chill, and we just kind of clicked. Before I knew it, I had a little group, Kayla, and then a couple of other people from our dorm. It's nothing like high school, where everyone was in these cliques. College is different. People just hang out because they get along, not because they feel like they have to. Anyway, classes have been going well. A little more intense than I expected, but I'm managing. Grandpa's been a big help with keeping me grounded. He calls me a couple of times a week to check in, and whenever I go back to his place on weekends, he's always there, ready to listen if I need to vent about anything. It's been nice, having that stability. I never realized how much I needed it until I got it, but of course, life isn't all perfect. About a month into school, Dad texted me again. It was a pretty long message this time. He said he missed me, that the house felt empty without me, and that he was sorry for everything that happened before I left. He kept going on about how he wanted to fix things, how he knew he'd been wrong, and how he was ready to make it up to me. Part of me wanted to believe him. I really did. I mean, I missed my dad too. Or at least, I missed the idea of having a dad who cared. But I also couldn't forget all the years of feeling like I didn't matter, like I was always second place to Matt. I'd been burned too many times to just jump back into things with him like nothing had happened. I didn't respond right away. I showed the message to Grandpa again, and he just nodded, like he knew this was coming. "It's up to you, but don't feel rushed," he said, in that calm, steady way he always talks. "You've got time to figure out what you want." And that's the thing. This time I felt like I did have time. I didn't need to rush back into a relationship with Dad just because he said sorry. For once, I could take my time and decide what was best for me. A couple more weeks went by, and I still didn't respond. I thought about it, sure, but every time I went to type something, I stopped. It just didn't feel right yet. I wasn't ready to go back to that. Not when I was finally starting to feel like my own person. But then, something happened that really shook me up. One weekend, I was back at Grandpa's, and we were just sitting in the living room watching TV when his phone rang. He answered it, and I could tell right away that something was wrong by the way his face changed. He didn't say much, just nodded and gave a few short answers before hanging up. "What's going on?" I asked, already feeling that pit forming in my stomach. Grandpa sighed, rubbing his face like he was trying to find the right words. "It's your dad," he said finally. "He had a heart attack." I just sat there, stunned. I didn't know what to say. I mean, yeah, Dad wasn't young, but he wasn't old either. A heart attack? It felt unreal. "He's in the hospital now," Grandpa continued. "The doctors think he'll be okay, but it was serious." I didn't even know how to react. Part of me felt this rush of panic, like I needed to drop everything and go see him. But another part of me, the part that had been holding on to all that anger and hurt, wasn't sure if I could. I hadn't talked to him since he texted me weeks ago, and now this? It felt like the universe was throwing me some kind of messed up test. Grandpa didn't pressure me. He just gave me space to process it. He said we could go visit Dad if I wanted to, or we could wait and see how things went. I appreciated that. He wasn't trying to force me into doing anything I wasn't ready for. That night, I lay awake for hours, thinking about everything. Thinking about all the times Dad had made me feel invisible, all the times he chose Matt over me, all the hurt I'd carried with me for so long. But then I thought about the good times, too. There were moments when Dad had been there for me, moments when it felt like we had a real connection, even if they were few and far between. By the next morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine between us, but I also couldn't just ignore the fact that he was my dad. So I told Grandpa that I wanted to go see him, at least to hear him out. I wasn't making any promises, but I needed to see for myself what was going on. When we got to the hospital, it was weird seeing Dad like that. He looked tired, weak, vulnerable, in a way I'd never seen him before. I guess that's what a heart attack does to you. It knocks you down a peg. He didn't say much at first, just looked at me with this expression that I couldn't quite read. But after a while, he finally spoke. "I'm glad you came," he said, his voice raspy. I nodded, not really sure what to say. It wasn't exactly a happy reunion. We both had a lot of baggage between us, and it was going to take more than a hospital visit to fix that. "I know I've been a crappy dad," he continued after a long pause. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try. I want to be better." I could hear the sincerity in his voice, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, he meant it. I didn't know what the future held for us, but as I sat there, holding my dad's hand, I realized that maybe it was time to start letting go of some of that anger. Not for him, but for me. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that holding on to pain doesn't make you stronger. It just keeps you stuck in the past, and I was ready to move forward. I'm 46 now, and it all started back when I was just 20 years old. That was when I found out my then-girlfriend cheated on me with my own brother. It was a betrayal that cut deep, and I remember the raw, burning anger and heartbreak like it was yesterday. I told my brother right then that he was dead to me. No longer my brother, in any sense that mattered. Over the years, despite my clear stance, My family never cut ties with him, which just added salt to the wound. I made it clear that if they wanted to choose between inviting him or me to family gatherings, they should choose him because I wasn't going to be in the same room with him. Ever. That's been my line in the sand, my non-negotiable. Fast forward to the present, and here we are with my daughter getting ready to marry next spring. You'd think that time would heal all wounds, but some cuts are just too deep. In a turn of events that feels like a twist in a movie, my daughter recently sat me down and calmly dropped the news that she was inviting my brother and his family to her wedding. Yes, the very brother who backstabbed me. And worse, he married that same ex-girlfriend of mine. To add to the complexity, my daughter has been secretly building a relationship with them for the last 4 years behind my back. She even wants her cousin, my niece from that marriage, to be the flower girl. I felt like I was living a nightmare, hearing all this. My blood boiled as all those old wounds ripped open anew. I couldn't help but react. I told her straight up about my boundaries. If my brother was invited, I wouldn't be there, nor would I pay for any part of the wedding. Predictably, this didn't go over well with her. She got angry, accusing me of holding on to the past and making her wedding about my old grudges. The argument escalated quickly, voices raised, harsh words thrown. She left in tears, which tore at me, but I felt cornered, like my past was being dismissed as just old baggage. Then, as if the situation wasn't stressful enough, my ex-wife called me, furious, calling me an idiot and saying our daughter was crushed by my stance. My parents also weighed in, echoing similar sentiments, telling me I was being unreasonable and needed to get over it. I shut down, stopped taking their calls. My current girlfriend, who's been a rock through this, gently suggested I reconsider my position and apologize to smooth things over. She warned that I might irreparably damage my relationship with my daughter over this. Here I am, wrestling with a tangled mess of emotions. On one hand, I've got my daughter's wedding, a milestone I should be part of. On the other, there's the deep-seated hurt and betrayal from my brother, something I've never truly gotten past. I keep turning it over in my mind. Should I stick to my boundaries, which are about respect and protecting my peace? Or do I cave to keep the peace and potentially open old wounds? The whole situation has left me feeling isolated from my family, and yet, I know that making a stand could cost me my relationship with my daughter. I'm torn between the need to uphold my principles and the desire to be there for my daughter on one of the most important days of her life. As I mull over my options, I'm considering ways to maybe be involved without having to directly confront my brother. Could I contribute in a way that keeps me physically distant from the wedding? How do I even begin to navigate a conversation with my daughter that doesn't end in more tears and anger? Am I the idiot for that? Now for the top comments before the update. Not the idiot. This is one of those stories where your daughter has decided that she's willing to alienate you for someone that betrayed your trust. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago. It only matters that it happened, which means she betrayed your trust. If she wants him there so badly, he can pay to have to. The people around you need a reality check. Ask your daughter of her fiancé, cheated on her with her sister tomorrow, moved on with the affair partner, and decided to stay close to him. How's she feel? It's so easy for everyone to judge you when they're not in your shoes, and in terms of the money, tradition or not, it's yours, and you can do with it as you please. I still wouldn't pay since there's so much secrecy. I bet you'll pay in. Your brother will show up regardless. He supports his daughter his whole life and makes it clear his brother's no longer welcome in his life. His daughter betrays his trust and springs this on him, while also expecting him to be a checkbook for her wedding. She's a grown woman. She can learn the consequences. It was probably the brother making sure OP's daughter likes him to get another one in an op. I do not like the brother. Here's a very unpopular opinion. I don't understand why your daughter decided to connect with someone who betrayed their father. How much drama would it have been to let sleeping dogs lie? I know many people won't agree with me, but if this causes an irreparable rift between you and your daughter, being right won't give you much comfort. While I'm fully supporting you, standing your ground, just remember, if you stand here, you will miss out on her potential kids' birthday parties. Another family events because your family will truly cut you off. If you're okay with that, then so be it. It's been 26 years longer than OP's daughter has even been alive. I understand being annoyed that his brother's invited, not wanting to talk or take pictures with him, etc. But giving up your relationship with your daughter is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Here's my question, OP. Your brother stole your girlfriend. Do you want him to steal your daughter to your grandchildren? If not, stop being an idiot and suck it up for one day. Now for updates. Update 1. It was just another Thursday, and I thought it was going to be a regular evening. Maybe fix up something quick for dinner, catch up on a TV show, and chill. But the moment I turned my key in the lock and pushed the door open, I realized today was anything but normal. Right there in my own living room were the last two people I ever expected to see chilling on my couch, my brother and his wife. The shock of seeing them there made my heart skip a beat. This was the brother who had backstabbed me years ago by cheating with my girlfriend, who he eventually married. And there they were, sitting casually as if they hadn't turned my world upside down once. I stood frozen in the doorway, my keys still dangling in the door. "What's going on here?" I finally managed to ask, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. My daughter, Lily, was there too, looking like she was caught between wanting to hide and wanting to explain everything. She stood up quickly, a nervous smile plastered on her face. "Hey, Dad, you're home early," she said, as if that was the biggest surprise. "Why are they here?" I asked, my eyes flicking between my brother and his wife, not believing this was really happening. "Dad, I invited them over. I thought it was time to sort things out, before the wedding," Lily explained, her voice hopeful but shaky. "Sort things out?" I repeated, incredulous. The room felt too small, the walls closing in as the anger started to bubble up inside me. "You think after everything that happened, after what he did, we can just sort things out like it's nothing?" My brother, who hadn't said a word yet, finally spoke up. His voice was calm, too calm. "I know this is hard, but I just thought—" "Hard?" I cut him off, not ready to hear whatever excuse he had. "You think this is just hard? You have no idea. You wrecked everything, and now you just show up in my living room like we're going to have a nice little chat?" Lily stepped in front of me, her hands up like she was trying to physically stop the fight before it got worse. "Dad, please, just listen for a second. This is important to me. I want my wedding to be a day when our whole family comes together, not falls apart." "This is not your family," I said firmly, pointing at my brother. "I told you years ago, he's nothing to me now. And you," I turned to his wife, "you're no better." The room went silent for a moment, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Lily's face crumpled, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Dad, why can't you just get over it? It's been years. Don't you see you're just holding on to old grudges?" "Old grudges?" I felt a laugh bubble up, but it was hollow, bitter. "These aren't just grudges, this is about respect, about trust. And I gestured angrily at my brother, he broke all of that. But I'm asking you, as your daughter, to try. For me," Lily pleaded, her voice breaking. "No, I can't. Not with him." My voice was firm, final. I looked at my brother and his wife. "You need to leave. Now." "But Dad," Lily started. "I said now." My voice boomed louder than I intended. There was a painful moment where nobody moved. Then, slowly, my brother and his wife got up. They didn't say another word as they walked to the door, but my daughter's eyes stayed on me, hurt and accusing. "You're going to regret this," she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. "You're choosing your pride over your own daughter." The door shut behind them, and the sound echoed in the empty room. I stood there, my heart racing, my emotions a tangled mess. Was I right to send them away? Or had I just made the biggest mistake, pushing my daughter away over a feud that should have been buried long ago? Now the house was silent. Too silent. It felt like a gaping hole had been opened up right in the middle of my family, and I had no idea how to fix it. Could I have handled that better? Should I have just listened for Lily's sake? The questions swirled in my mind, each one heavier than the last. As I sat down on the couch, trying to calm my racing heart, I realized this was far from over. The road to my daughter's wedding was going to be a rocky one, and I had just made it even rockier. Update 2. With my daughter Lily's wedding getting closer every day, it felt like the walls were starting to close in on me. Everything seemed to be spiraling out of control ever since I kicked my brother and his wife out of my house. I thought I had seen it all, but things were about to get even more intense. It all kicked off one afternoon when I was out in the garage, trying to distract myself by working on a new woodworking project. I was sanding down a piece of oak when my phone buzzed. I wiped the sawdust off my hands and checked it, seeing my parents' names flashing on the screen. A knot formed in my stomach, but I answered, hoping maybe they just wanted to chat. I was wrong. As soon as I said hello, I could hear the disappointment in my dad's voice. "You've really done it this time," he said. His words were heavy, filled with frustration. "Your mother and I can't believe how you treated your brother and his wife. You're acting like a jerk, you know that?" Hearing him say that felt like a slap in the face. I leaned against the workbench, my grip tightening on the phone. "Dad, come on. You know the whole story. How can you expect me to just forget everything and act like nothing happened?" "It's been over 25 years, he argued back. "Sure, he made a huge mistake back then, but people change. You're still clinging to this old grudge, and it's pulling the family apart." I tried to keep my cool, but it was hard. Pulling the family apart? Wasn't it him who did that when he betrayed me? Before I could add anything else, my mom took the phone from my dad. Her voice was softer, but it still carried a sharp edge of criticism. Listen, we love you, but you need to hear this. You're being stubborn and selfish. Your daughter wants her uncle at her wedding. You're hurting her with your stubbornness, don't you see? The call ended without any goodbyes, just a lot of harsh words hanging in the air. I hung up the phone, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Jessica, my girlfriend, had been in the doorway listening. She came over, her face full of concern. You know, maybe they don't understand, but I do, Jessica said, wrapping her arm around me. Her support felt like a lifeline in a sea of chaos. But maybe there's a way to handle this that doesn't end with you or Lily getting hurt. Her words were a small comfort, but they didn't solve the big problem. The thought of seeing my brother at Lily's wedding, acting like everything was okay, made my stomach turn. But then there was Lily, my daughter, who I loved more than anything. She had been calling almost every day, her voice more and more upset each time. Dad, please, she would say, her voice desperate. This isn't just about you or Uncle Mike. It's my day. Don't you want to be there for me? Her pleas made my heart heavy. Was I really going to let my past with my brother ruin one of the happiest days of her life? But on the other hand, how could I just stand there and pretend everything was fine with the man who hurt me so deeply? As the wedding day drew nearer, the pressure kept mounting. I'd lie awake at night, the house quiet around me, wrestling with what to do. On one hand, if I stuck to my guns and refused to go, I might regret missing my daughter's wedding forever. On the other hand, if I went and faced my brother, I wasn't sure I could handle it without the old wounds tearing open all over again. It felt like a no-win situation. Every option seemed to end with someone getting hurt. I spent hours pacing back and forth in my living room, trying to find some kind of middle ground. Could I really find a way to be there for Lily without having to interact with my brother? The more I thought about it, the more complicated it seemed. The clock was ticking, and with every passing day, the decision weighed heavier on me. It was like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I needed to find a way out before it crushed me. Update 3. As the days leading up to Lily's wedding flew off the calendar, I braced myself every time the phone rang or someone knocked on the door, half expecting more drama. But then, something completely unexpected happened that turned the whole situation around. One quiet afternoon, I was out back in the garden, just me and the weeds, trying to get my mind off things. That's when I heard the front door open and close. I figured it was Jessica getting back from somewhere, but then I heard a voice that stopped me in my tracks. Dad, are you out here? It was Lily. I straightened up, brushing dirt off my knees, and turned around to see her walking towards me, a serious look on her face. My heart skipped a beat, wondering what was on her mind this time. Hey, kiddo, I said, trying to sound calm, even though I was anything but. She took a deep breath as she reached me, letting it out slowly like she was about to lift a heavy weight off her shoulders. Dad, we need to talk. I've been thinking a lot. We sat down together on the edge of the porch, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the ground. She reached out and took my hand, a gesture that brought back memories of her childhood when a handhold could make everything better. I'm really sorry, Dad, for how I handled things with Uncle Mike and his wife. I should have talked to you first instead of just springing that meeting on you, she began, her voice full of regret. Hearing her apologize like that, I felt a mix of surprise and relief. I squeezed her hand gently. I understand why you did it, Lily, but yeah, it was tough for me. I know, Dad, and I've been thinking about everything, she continued, her eyes earnest and sincere. That's why I've decided that Uncle Mike and his wife won't be coming to the wedding. I want you there, Dad. It's more important that you're there, and I don't want anything to spoil that. This was the last thing I expected to hear. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. Are you sure about this? I don't want you to feel like you have to choose or miss out on having other family there because of me. She shook her head, her decision clear. No, Dad. This is what I want. It's not just about taking sides. It's about celebrating the day with love and the family that supports us and builds us up, not the ones that might bring us down. We spent a long time talking that afternoon, more openly than we had in a while. We talked about the wedding details, about our family, and about how we both saw the future. It felt like we were repairing old bridges, ones that had needed some serious mending. By the time she left, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I didn't fully realize I was carrying until it was gone. News of Mike and his wife not attending spread through the family pretty fast. Reactions were a mixed bag. Some were relieved, others a bit upset. But for me, It was all about making sure Lily's day was as perfect as it could be without the shadow of past hurts looming over us. Watching her drive away that day, I felt a peace about the upcoming wedding that I hadn't felt in weeks. Maybe, just maybe, this was a step towards healing for all of us. It wasn't going to be quick or easy, and the road ahead would have its bumps, but for now, it felt right. We were on a path that could lead to mending, not just for me and Lily, but maybe for the whole family. One step at a time. Update 4. Just when I thought we were finally on a smooth path to Lily's wedding, a curveball came flying our way. It was one of those sunny afternoons, the kind where you wouldn't expect any drama. I was just fixing up a snack in the kitchen when my phone rang. It was an old family friend, someone who'd been more in touch with my brother's side of the family than mine. I hesitated before answering, not sure I was in the mood for more drama, but curiosity won out. "Hey, there's something you should know about why Mike really wants to come to Lily's wedding," the friend said right off the bat, sounding a bit uneasy. I leaned against the counter, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Okay, shoot," I replied, bracing myself for whatever was coming. The friend sighed heavily before continuing. "Well, it turns out Mike's got an ulterior motive. His son, your nephew, is getting married soon too. But here's the kicker. Most of the family has shunned that wedding because of the stunt Mike pulled on you years ago. They haven't forgiven him, and it's causing a rift." I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. So this was what it was all about. My brother wasn't trying to mend old wounds for the sake of family unity. He was trying to fix his own image to ensure his son's wedding wasn't a flop. He figured that if he could get back on good terms with you at Lily's wedding, maybe the family would soften up and decide to show up for his son's big day, the friend added, sounding as disappointed as I felt. After the call, I sat down at the kitchen table, the news sinking in. It felt underhanded, and I knew I had to tell Lily. When she came over later that day, I explained everything. Watching her face fall as she processed the news was heart-wrenching. "Dad, why can't things just be simple? Why does everything have to have an angle?" Lily's voice cracked with emotion, and it was clear she felt manipulated, a mere chess piece in her uncle's game. I reached out and pulled her into a hug, trying to offer some comfort. "I'm sorry, kiddo. Life throws these weird curves at us sometimes, but remember, we're in this together. Your wedding is about you and your happiness, not about anyone else's games." Lily nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "It's just so frustrating, Dad. To think that he would use my wedding, something so important to me, just to fix his own mistakes." We spent a lot of time talking that evening. It was a deep, sometimes painful conversation, but by the end of it, Lily seemed a bit calmer, though the disappointment still lingered. We reaffirmed our decision together. Mike and his wife would not be invited to the wedding. This decision was now about more than just old wounds. It was about integrity and genuine intentions, both of which Mike seemed to lack. Word of Mike's real motives spread quickly within the family. The reaction was a mix of outrage and support for our decision. Most family members felt even more strongly that Lily and I were doing the right thing. They were upset on her behalf, angry that her uncle would stoop so low as to use her special day for his own benefit. As the wedding day drew nearer, I felt a renewed sense of protectiveness and pride in how Lily was handling everything. Sure, there were likely to be more challenges ahead, but this twist had only strengthened the bond between us. We were more determined than ever to keep the wedding focused on what truly mattered, celebrating Lily and her future, surrounded by people who loved her genuinely, without any hidden agendas or ulterior motives. Every night as I went to bed, I thought about how lucky I was to have such a strong and smart daughter. Whatever came our way, I knew we'd face it together, just like we always had. Update 5. As Lily's wedding day got closer, things seemed to be calming down, but we were in for a bit more drama before we could get to the celebrations. Lily, feeling really upset and betrayed by her Uncle Mike's sneaky plan, decided she wasn't just going to let it go. She needed to confront him and his wife about their real reasons for wanting to come to her wedding. One chilly evening, Lily sat down with Uncle Mike and his wife at our local coffee shop. She was really nervous but determined to get some answers. She asked them straight up why they were so keen on coming to her wedding, especially when they hadn't been a big part of her life lately. Uncle Mike tried to dance around the question, giving half answers and trying to smooth things over. But Lily wasn't having any of it. She could tell he wasn't being fully honest, and it just made her more upset. Feeling like she hadn't gotten the truth from them directly, Lily decided to take a big step. She made a video and posted it on social media, explaining the whole situation. She talked about how she found out that Uncle Mike was trying to use her wedding to fix his own family problems because many relatives were still mad at him for what he did years ago. She explained how this made her feel used and hurt. The video quickly went viral within our community and family circles. People were really supportive of Lily, leaving comments that they stood by her and were shocked at Uncle Mike's actions. It seemed like Uncle Mike's plan not only didn't work, but actually made things worse for him. Now, even more family members decided they didn't want to go to his son's wedding because they were upset by how he'd acted. The family drama kicked up a notch after that. People were taking sides, and there were a lot of heated discussions at family gatherings and online. It was tough to see the family so divided. Uncle Mike called me a few days after the video went out. He sounded really down, more sorry than I'd ever heard him before. I just wanted to make things right for my son, but I see now how wrong I was to try to use Lily's wedding like that, he told me. I could tell he was genuinely regretful, but for a lot of people, it was too little, too late. Despite all this, Lily's wedding day arrived, and it was a beautiful sunny day, perfect for a wedding. There was still a bit of tension in the air because of all the family stuff, but we all tried to put it aside and focus on Lily and her big day. She looked absolutely stunning, and as she walked down the aisle, all smiles and glowing, I felt a wave of relief and happiness. We were all here for her, and that's what really mattered. The wedding was gorgeous, full of laughter, dancing, and lots of cake, and for a day at least, it felt like the family drama was put on hold. Everyone was just happy to celebrate Lily and her new start. After the wedding, things didn't just magically go back to normal in our family. The rifts were still there, and it felt like it might take a long time for some wounds to heal. But what mattered was that Lily had a wonderful wedding day, and she knew she had the support of many family members who respected her and stood by her decision. This whole situation taught us a lot about being honest and standing up for what you believe in. It was messy and painful at times, but it also brought some of us closer together. We realized how important it is to support each other and to be clear about our intentions. And for Lily, it was a lesson in handling tough situations with grace and strength. Last update. As we left the town hall that day, the air felt different, almost electric with the raw emotions and revelations that had unfolded. Everyone lingered a bit, hesitant to part ways too quickly after such intense exchanges. The conversations that started inside spilled out onto the steps, with family members forming small clusters, talking earnestly. Lily stayed close to me, her earlier apprehension replaced by a thoughtful, more hopeful expression. "Dad, that was overwhelming, but I think it was what we needed. It's weird, isn't it? How much we didn't know, how much pain could have been avoided with just a few honest conversations." I nodded, squeezing her shoulder gently. "Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But you're right. It's like we've been carrying around pieces of a puzzle without even knowing it, and today we finally started putting them together." Around us, I could see similar moments unfolding. Aunt Clara was deep in conversation with Mike, both of them looking more at ease than they had in years. Their discussion seemed heartfelt, with nods and the occasional hand on a shoulder. It was clear that while the path to forgiveness might be long and bumpy, the commitment to make it work was there. Meanwhile, my cousin, whose unexpected arrival had added yet another layer to our family's story, was now surrounded by younger family members eager to hear more about the overseas life and the insights that had led them back to us at such a crucial time. Their stories, filled with adventures and the wisdom of distance, added a lighter note to the gathering, reminding us all of the bonds that still held strong despite everything. As the crowd slowly started to disperse, Lily and I walked towards our car. The setting sun cast long shadows and the cool breeze hinted at the coming of fall. "You know, Dad, I think today changed a lot of things for us for the better," Lily mused, her voice reflective. "It did," I agreed, feeling a mix of pride and relief. "And I'm proud of you, kiddo. It took a lot of courage to face all this head on, to push for honesty and openness." Lily smiled, looking up at the sky tinted with hues of orange and pink. "It's going to be okay, isn't it? I mean, we still have a lot to work through, but it feels like we're not stuck anymore." "Exactly," I said, as we reached the car and paused, looking back at the town hall, now bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. "We're moving forward, and that's what matters. Healing is a journey, and today was a big step on that path, and whatever comes next, we'll handle it together as a family." As we drove away, the town hall shrinking in the rearview mirror, I felt a sense of closure and a new beginning. The secrets that had once threatened to tear us apart were now out in the open, and in their place, a tentative hope had taken root. It was a reminder that while the past may shape us, it doesn't have to define us. Our family, with all its complexities and imperfections, was slowly finding its way back to each other, one honest conversation at a time.